I used to believe big lies arrived like thunder. With Jenna, they came as confetti. She said, I'm pregnant. On my doorstep the same night, a box of gender-neutral balloons landed on hers. We've been over for weeks, long enough for my mail to stop going to her place and my toothbrush to find a new cup. But in her version of events, endings were just pauses with marketing. I told her I'd show up for anything real, doctor notes, appointments, paperwork. She called me cold. I called it proof. When you've dated panic in a pretty dress, you learn to ask for receipts before you hand over your future. Seattle will make you sentimental if you let it. In the first year with Jenna, we let it. We walked Green Lake until our socks were damp, pretended the Space Needle was ours whenever it cleared the cloud line, and split cinnamon rolls on Sundays from the bakery that burns everything slightly on purpose. I'm an SRE, the unglamorous kind. Alerts, uptime, runbooks, the steady heartbeat you only notice when it stops. Jenna was a brand designer who freelanced out of a shared studio on Capitol Hill. She had a way of making white space look expensive and the rest of us look like we were late to our own lives. If we'd stayed in that first year forever, I'd have proposed in a coffee line with a receipt for a ring I hadn't bought yet. But first years don't last, people do. The hairline cracks arrived as compliments that sounded like questions. You're so good with your coworker, she'd say, like, good. Then the calendar checks started. What time do you deploy? When do you get home? Soft at first, a hand on my sleeve, then sharper, like a hand on a fire alarm. She was never violent, just constant. She'd call 2-3 times in an hour if I didn't answer the first, then text my Slack like she was paging me for a production incident. The irony wasn't lost on me. The person most sure I was crashing our relationship was the one leaning on every button. We broke up in a rain that didn't bother to become dramatic. We'd yelled 2 nights earlier about a coworker of mine, the sort Jenna liked to describe as effortlessly kind, which I learned translates to, I think she likes you. I offered to introduce them over lunch. Jenna said humiliating herself in a cafeteria wasn't her brand. I slept at a friend's. The next day, she DM'd me 3 screenshots of my Git history with a caption that said, see, you weren't even working. This is the part where people ask how she had my Git. I had logged in on her iPad once to check a build while we were watching a show. She never forgets a door code. After the breakup, there was blessed quiet 2 weeks of it. The kind of silence that feels like a room has been cleaned while you were out. I built myself new routines like railings, morning runs by the lake, groceries on Tuesday so I'd stop ordering pad thai at midnight, finally mending the rip in my only decent jacket. Work steadied me. My pager still screamed at 2 in the morning, but it was just a machine announcing that it needed me, not a person pretending they didn't. The night she came back, I was at my kitchen island eating pizza over the box so the pepperoni oil wouldn't chase me around the apartment later. 3 knocks. I don't know why I knew it was her. I think some people carry weather with them and it seeps under the door before they do. She was paler than I remembered, hair messier, the kind of mess you style on purpose to look undone, except this wasn't that. She said she was 8 weeks. I asked how she knew. She said she had pictures. Then doctor, she said she had pictures. She said a white envelope on the counter like a peace offering. Inside were 2 ultrasound printouts and a stapled note with a clinic logo. It wasn't a lot, no dates I could verify, no visit summary with a last name I could check, but it wasn't nothing. The stapled note said approximate gestational age and follow-up in 2 weeks. It also said her last name, but not the one she used when we were together. She'd started experimenting with Lake, a name she'd played with for her design persona, a whole branding Jenna Lake thing, like a lake was a place you go to settle your thoughts. Her driver's license still said a different name. I didn't say any of that. I did the thing therapists say decent men should do when women are frightened. I offered water, a chair, a softer voice. Then I asked the only question my life had taught me to ask when something important breaks, how do we know? She flinched like I'd slapped her. How do we know? The words sound simple until someone hears what you're accusing them of. She said I was cruel. I said I was consistent. I'll support you, I said, like I was laying down a plank between us. As soon as we test, I'll go to appointments, I'll pay half. But I can't move forward on a guess. She said a guess was all babies ever were until they arrived. That was a Jenna sentence, true enough to win an argument, slippery enough to lose a person. I told her there were non-invasive prenatal tests that could determine paternity from maternal blood and my sample after 9 weeks. I'd read about them the week after we ended, in one of those late-night internet wars you wage with yourself when you want to be prepared for conversations that might never happen. She said the word test like it tasted rusty. She left with the envelope and a look that could have been anything. Hurt, contempt, hunger. I've never been good at faces. I expected a storm of texts. Instead, I got confetti. The next day, one of our mutual friends posted a reel of a flat lay, neutral onesies, a wooden rattle, a baby book that said, "Hello, little." The tag led to a registry. The registry looked like Jenna's portfolio had gotten pregnant. Serif fonts, oatmeal linens, everything the color of a gentle apology. At the top it said, Baby Lake, and next to that, the line that told you who the registry was for. It was Jenna's first name and Lake, again, nothing about me, nothing about anyone, so blank it felt deliberate. I scrolled through the items, bottles, swaddles, bassinet, and saw a note pinned to the bassinet with a little heart, expecting late spring, grateful for your love. Not one person needed to know who the father was, and somehow that felt like the point. Our friends started texting anyway, the careful kind of support that reads like a vote. Proud of you for stepping up, man, one said, as if I had already done it. Another sent me a link to a prenatal book and a screenshot of a group chat where 3 of them debated whether we should plan a shower in April or May, given the doctor said 8 weeks. I typed and deleted 30 versions of the truth, then put my phone face down on the counter and stared at the oven light like it owed me advice. This is where you could tell me to call her parents. Jenna's parents live in Spokane and love their daughter like an idea about the future. Her mother once told me Jenna had been naming children since she was 9. Her father shook my hand so hard on Christmas Eve I worried he was testing my ligaments for marriage. I didn't call them, I called the lab. If you have never spoken with a paternity testing lab, the conversation is bureaucratically intimate. Are you alleged father? Yes. Is the alleged mother consenting? I don't know yet. How many weeks? 8 by her count. They explain the logistics like a recipe maternal blood draw, my cheek swab, a lab that can distinguish cell-free fetal DNA in a maternal sample and match it against mine. It isn't magic, it's probability dressed for court. I scheduled a kit to be mailed to me, which made me feel like I was ordering furniture for a house we didn't own. When I texted Jenna about it, she read it and waited 4 hours to answer. That was new. Old Jenna answered in seconds and kept answering until the question gave up. New Jenna wrote, I don't love the idea. Test stressed me. I took a breath and typed what I would have wanted someone to type to me if I were the one holding a body I didn't understand. I wrote that I would pay for it. I wrote that a result would protect both of us from stories we don't need to carry. I wrote that my support didn't expire, but my patience for unverified claims did. She sent back, you are being clinical about a miracle. Then she sent a link to a Pinterest board of nursery skylines. Confetti. Maybe this is the part where you decide you don't like me. I understand. There's a version of this story where I tear open my wallet and my heart and play the earnest almost father with eyes wet as a lake at dawn. But I have been the boy with wet eyes at dawn. That boy gets used by people who are better at crying in public than telling the truth in private. I wanted to be good. I also wanted to be right. Her Instagram pivoted overnight from typographic posters and latte art to mom-to-be content so polished it looked like a brand. She posted a reel of her hand on her belly with a caption that said, I didn't plan you, but my heart did. The audio was a piano cover of a pop song that made everybody comment crying faces. In the reflection of the coffee shop window behind her, a man's shoulder. Maybe nothing, maybe not. I tapped through like it was any other narrative that wanted my attention more than it deserved. 2 nights later, I ordered ramen and remembered I had access to an app Jenna made me install when we moved in together. A budgeting thing that linked to our old shared expenses and had never fully unlinked from her Venmo because I forgot which email I used to unspool it. I am not proud of what I clicked. I am also not sorry. I saw a public transaction from a username I didn't recognize. Luca Maid paying Jenna with a note that said for bassinet, winky face. I clicked the profile. The picture was a man behind a bar, forearms you'd buy if you could, the kind of smile you'd call honest if you hadn't met bartenders. The bio said, bar manager at night, cupcakes by day, DM for catering. That is how I learned there is a subculture of men in this city who can both pour perfect old-fashioned and bake cupcakes with names like Sunday Morning and First Snow. Luca's stories were a catalog of frosting swirls and dim light, interspersed with boomerangs of clinking glasses in a bar I'd seen in Jenna's stories before. The night she said she'd gone home early with nausea, Luca posted a clip of someone in Jenna's sweater laughing as they iced cakes at midnight. Their hands moved like they knew each other's rhythm. I didn't know Luca. I did know the studio on Capitol Hill where Jenna rented a desk had a new community partner catering their events, Luca's Cupcakes. I knew because Jenna used to make me proofread her pitches, and I could still hear her voice when she described synergies that weren't blushing about being synergies. None of this proved anything, but the difference between smoke and fog is the direction it moves. The kit arrived in a box so clean it looked like a spa product. Inside, barcoded tubes, swabs, instructions written by a lawyer who wanted to be your friend. I called Jenna and asked if we could meet. She said public place. I said yes. We met at a coffee shop near Volunteer Park, the kind where every plant has a name and every barista knows it. She wore a sweater that hid the body I was supposed to talk about and makeup that didn't. She didn't hug me. Progress comes dressed as boundaries more often than closure. I told her I had a kit. I explained again how the test worked. I told her I would pay and drive and carry whatever needed carrying. She watched me like I was explaining a system she didn't plan on using. I can't have my blood taken this week, she said. My doctor wants to wait until next. It's safer. Safer to confirm who's on the birth certificate, I said, and regretted it before it hit her. She flinched, then set her jaw. You know what, she said. It's fascinating. You wanted to be a dad someday. You told me that. You planned names. Now you've got a chance and you're picking at it like a thread. That's exactly what I'm doing, I said, refusing to apologize to the version of her that would take it as an invitation to perform. If it's mine, I want to know as early as we can so we can do this right. If it's not, you still deserve a plan that includes the correct person. The correct person, she repeated, like I was a cashier who'd shorted her $2. You mean you want me to tell you who I slept with? I want you to tell the truth, I said. To me, to yourself, to a kid who could read someday. She closed her eyes and exhaled through her nose like a yoga teacher learning there's no such thing as breath work for consequences. Then she stood up, grabbed the kit, and said fine. We set an appointment for the following Friday at a lab that promised professionalism with parking. In the week between, my phone became a small courtroom. Friends cross-examined me for callousness, often in the same sentence. My mother, who lives 3 hours away and believes most of the world's ills can be solved with soup, said, "If it's yours, we'll love the baby. If it isn't, we'll love you." My father said, "Ask a lawyer, not Instagram. I did both." The lawyer told me nothing I didn't already know, but the way she told me made my shoulders lower. Instagram told me everything I didn't need. That's the thing about being almost a father in public. The world wants to knit you a sweater, then argue about the pattern while you drown. On Wednesday, Jenna posted a video of a cake tasting. The caption said, "Baby shower planning has me like," and then 3 cupcake emojis. The last clip showed Luca piping frosting roses onto a cake with a fondant banner that read, "Oh baby," in a script I'd seen on Jenna's laptop when she was working on a wedding suite in January. The geotag was a venue in Ballard. I clicked the venue, then the tagged planner, then the tagged planner, then the tagged caterer, and found a date 2 months out circled in pastel on a grid. It said, "Shower for Jay." The comment said, "Can't wait, mama." No one tagged me. Friday, she was 20 minutes late to the lab. When she arrived, she apologized to the receptionist, but not to me, which I decided to take as a boundary, not a performance. She signed the consent, let them draw blood, then watched me swap my cheek like she was attending a sad play. When it was over, she tucked a piece of hair behind her ear and said, "There? Happy?" I said, "Happy isn't what this is." She said, "I know." Then she left with a step that tried for defiant and landed on tired. The lab said results in a week. In that week, I learned a lot about time, how it stretches when you're the one waiting and snaps when someone else is the one wasting. I ran every morning until my lungs stopped requesting explanations. I ate vegetables like I understood what they were for. At night, I lay in bed and let the question mark float above me like a light fixture I couldn't turn off. If you're wondering why I didn't just believe the person I once loved, I don't have language that will make you agree with me. I only had the memory of 1,000 small alarms I shushed for 2 years. No one gets that many snoozes in a lifetime. On Tuesday, I saw another Venmo from Luca to Jenna for stroller test drive. On Wednesday, a reel of her in front of a mirror, hand on belly again, captioned, "Anyone else feel like a little house?" The audio was a man's voice saying something about miracles and timing and the universe providing. The man's voice sounded like Luca's. Maybe that's me hearing what I needed to hear. Maybe it's the universe providing me a hint and letting me decide whether to call it petty. Thursday evening, my phone rang with a number I had saved under LAB in all caps like it was going to rescue me from a river. The woman on the other end was the same one who had explained the process in the voice of a kind math teacher. She asked me to verify my date of birth. She asked if I was in a place I could receive results. I said yes, then sat down because my legs had their own boat. "I will not make you unzip her sentences." She said the result was non-exclusionary for me. Then she said, in clear language that would make sense to a judge or a grandmother, that the probability I was the father was less than 1%. She told me the full report would be overnighted in a sealed envelope and that if I had questions, I could call back. I thanked her. People always say they don't know why they thank the messenger of bad news, but I do. Gratitude is the way you tell the world you still speak human after it has spoken test result. When I hung up, I stared at the black screen until it filled with my face, and for the first time in months, I liked the expression it made. I did not call Jenna that night. I did not call Luca. I did not call my mother for soup or my father for bullet points. I sat on the edge of my bed and let a future roll up like a rug, then unroll again with a different pattern. There is a grief for the fantasy version of yourself that starts to haunt the room when someone says the word father near your name. I gave him an hour. I let him stand by the window and imagine swaddles and midnight walks around a living room and not being like my own father in all the ways that mattered. I watched him until he left, the way you watch a stranger at a bus stop. Then I stood up and went to my kitchen and washed the 2 bowls in the sink because a person who can make a sink look ready for tomorrow can handle a phone call on Saturday. The envelope came in the morning mail, a white rectangle with weight that made it feel expensive. I slid it into a laptop sleeve like contraband. I could have texted the result to Jenna with a picture and a sentence that said, "I'm out." I could have mailed it certified. I could have walked it to her door and left it like an obituary. Instead, I let my pettiness learn a new word: presentation. 2 hours later, a message hit my phone from a number I didn't recognize until I did. It was Jenna's mother. She wrote that she knew we had our differences, but a baby shower was not a courtroom, and would I please keep things kind if I chose to attend. I wrote back that kindness and truth weren't enemies. She wrote back, "You used to be sweet." I typed 4 responses, then deleted them. When you are about to end a lie, the last person you should argue with is its florist. That afternoon, an Evite arrived. It was from a planner, all bows and soft colors, the kind of graphic Jenna could have made herself in 9 minutes. It said, "Join us to shower Jenna and Baby Lake." It did not say my name. It did not say a father's name. It did not say, "Please RSVP if you plan to bring the test result that will change the weather." It did include a line at the bottom about cupcakes provided by Lucas, with a tag to an Instagram page I had now scrolled so far back through I knew the names of cakes from last winter. I RSVP'd yes. The next day I went for a run that turned into a walk that turned into me sitting on a park bench and calling my friend Mike, who has loved me long enough to call me an idiot when it's a favor. I told him what the lab had said. He was quiet, then said, "I'm proud of you for not making this about winning. Make it about ending." I told him I wasn't sure I knew the difference. He said, "You will when you're standing under a balloon arch." On the morning of the shower, I shaved like I was interviewing for my own life. I ironed a shirt I saved for holidays and arguments with landlords. I slid the envelope into a simple manila folder because a manila folder is the costume truth wears when it has somewhere to be. On my way out the door, I looked at myself in the mirror and saw someone I almost recognized. A man who had been fooled and refused to stay that way. A man who could still choose the manner of his kindness. A man whose worst sin wasn't caution. Ballard on a Saturday looks like a mood board if you're not careful. The venue had white brick walls and plants that climbed them like they'd been trained not to embarrass anyone. Inside, the room was a field of beige punctuated by pink napkins. There was a backdrop that said, "Oh, baby," in a script I swear I'd kerned for Jenna on a different job. People turned when I came in, the way people do when a name enters a room without an RSVP. A woman I didn't know hugged me and called me brave. A man I'd had beers with twice patted my shoulder and said, "We got you, brother," which made me want to ask who exactly we was and what exactly they believed they had. Jenna stood near the cupcakes, hand on belly, face arranged like she practiced in a mirror, radiant, knowing, just enough vulnerability to make a picture worth commenting on. Beside her, Luca was lining up frosting like little soldiers, his hands sure, his smile practiced, his eyes doing quick math every time they flicked to me. He nodded. I nodded. Two men in a room, one holding sugar, one holding paper, both pretending the other couldn't alter the taste of everything. Jenna's mother made a little speech about community. The planner made a bigger one about blessings. People clapped at the right places. Someone handed me a paper card that said, "Share a wish for baby." I wrote, "I wish that truth is the first language spoken in your home." I did not sign it. I folded it twice and slipped it into a bowl shaped like a cloud. The planner clapped her hands and asked if anyone wanted to say a few words. Jenna looked at me like she was handing me a stage and a noose. I felt the envelope against my ribs where I had tucked it under my jacket and thought about Mike's sentence. Make it about ending. I raised my hand. When I stood, the room hushed the way rooms do when a story is about to choose its hero. I cleared my throat. I thanked people for loving a person I used to love in a way that made her feel held. I said I wish more rooms felt like that even when there weren't balloons. I said I had a gift that wasn't on the registry, a small thing but important, and I would like Jenna's mother to open it because mothers know what to do with important small things. I took the folder out. Jenna's mother frowned like I had handed her homework. She slid the document halfway out, saw the lab logo, and looked up at me with a face that asked 100 questions at once. Then she pulled it free and read the sentence I had highlighted in yellow, the way you highlight a line you wish you had never needed to read. Her mouth opened. The room tilted toward her without moving. Jenna took a step forward. Luca's hand paused over a cupcake, a rose suspended in frosting that would never bloom. And that's where I will stop for now, with the envelope open and the room holding its breath, because that was the last second I still had a choice about who I wanted to be when the words left someone else's mouth. Jenna's mother didn't shout the words, they fell out of her mouth in pieces. The laboratory finds probability of paternity under 1%. The last part came out thin, like a thread that snapped in her fingers. A dozen conversations in that room died at the same time. Someone dropped the fork. The soft pop music from the Bluetooth speaker kept playing as if none of us were in charge of volume. Jenna reached for the paper. Her mother pulled it back by instinct, as if it were a candle and Jenna were too. Then she looked at me the way a parent looks at the storm forecast and the person they'd like to blame for weather. "Why would you bring this here?" "Because I asked for proof in private," I said, keeping my hands at my sides, "and before this gets bigger, I need it to be true. For me, for you, for the kid." I didn't use the word your, I didn't use the word not. I let the paper do the grammar. Jenna was already shaking her head. "Those tests are unreliable. My doctor said so. It's too early. You ambushed me." She tried to laugh, the kind of laugh you use to tell a room there's been a misunderstanding. "You guys, this is a clerical thing." Luca wasn't laughing. He had set his piping bag down. His forearms were sugared and still. His eyes went to the floor, then up to the ceiling, like the answer might be stored in the HVAC. The planner started whispering to the photographer about maybe moving to presence, the kind of pivot you develop when your job is to arrange happiness for a living. Jenna's mother took 2 steps toward me, then changed her mind and turned toward her daughter. "Sweetheart?" Jenna was already building a case. "He's been obsessed with testing from the beginning. He said he'd only be part of this if I proved it, like I was applying for a loan. Do you see? He doesn't want to be a father. He never did." I let the words move through the room and settle. If I tried to swat them, they'd multiply. "I want it to be exactly who belongs here," I said. "I wanted that to be me. It isn't." No one told me I was brave this time. People looked at their shoes like they were seeing them for the first time. A friend of Jenna's, the kind who laughs before jokes land, said, "Maybe get a second opinion," and then stared at the cupcakes like an oracle. I took a breath that tasted like frosting and eucalyptus. "I'm going to step outside," I said to no one and everyone. "The report is yours to keep. Do with it what's right." I turned to Jenna's mother. "I'm sorry your day turned like this. I didn't come to humiliate anyone. I came to end a story I don't belong in." I walked out into Ballard's perfect Saturday. The sun had decided to do us the courtesy of existing. I stood at the curb, palms on cool brick, and counted backward from 100 until I liked the sound of my voice again. When I turned, Luca was there, 5 feet away, hands empty now. "I didn't know you'd do it here," he said quietly. "I didn't either," I said. "Until I did." He nodded once, a long nod. "We're all older now" nod. "Is it definitive?" "Definitive enough that a court would stop laughing." He exhaled. Okay, he looked at the open door. Okay. A woman I didn't recognize came out, placed a hand on my arm the way people touch wounded animals on TV and said, I'm sorry. I said, thank you, the way people on TV do, even though what I wanted to say was nothing at all. I didn't go back in. There's a difference between ending and watching the ending. I texted the planner a thank you for her time and a note that I would personally reimburse anyone on my guest list who'd brought a gift thinking I belonged on the tag. Then I walked, aimless first, then not, the way you do when your body decides to demonstrate that it still knows how to carry you. By the time I got home, my phone had stacked itself into a timeline of opinion. A couple of our mutual friends asked if I was okay. Two more wanted the full story, which is code for gossip dressed as concern. One text from a guy I only ever see in rooms with beer said, "That was savage, man. Not cool." I typed and deleted 10 answers before I let the thread go silent. Make it about ending, Mike had said. Ending doesn't get into comment wars. Jenna didn't text. Her mother did. She wrote, "This is not how decent men behave. I read the sentence twice and decided not to be the internet to it." An hour later, Luca texted from a number I didn't have. It was short. We should talk. I sent him a place and a time that wasn't now. He wrote, "I'll be there." I slept like someone had borrowed my sleep and only returned half. In the morning, my mother called. She didn't ask how it went. She asked if I wanted soup by mail. I told her I was okay. She said, "Good, you still get soup." My father asked if I documented who had the report. I told him that telling the truth in a room full of witnesses was its own documentation. He grunted in a way that means he agrees and refuses to reward me for it. Lucas showed up to the coffee shop looking exactly like the kind of man who can survive in any room, clean jacket, tired eyes, apology already built into the way he stood. He bought his coffee, he bought mine. He didn't try to sit until I nodded at the chair. "I didn't know she was going to," he stopped. "No, that's not the part I need to say first. I'm sorry, for my part, for not asking the questions that matter at the times they matter, for assuming the person benefiting from my silence had everyone else's consent. I'm not your priest," I said. "I know," he said. "I'm not trying to be forgiven, I'm trying to be responsible." He told me what I already suspected, but that didn't make hearing it less educational. They'd been on and off for months. "He thought you and she were done. She told me you were controlling," he said, like a man describing a pitch he regrets buying. He didn't justify it. He just let the words sit there like the free samples on a tray you don't have to touch to know they're stale. "Are you going to get tested?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "I already called." He took out his phone and I braced for screenshots. He didn't show me any. "I'm not here to hand you receipts," he said. "I'm here to tell you I'll carry what's mine." "Good," I said, because there is no trophy for empathy available to either of us. "I also wanted to tell you," he added, "that I told Jenna I won't be part of any story that starts with a lie. If that means I'm not invited to her content, so be it." "Her content," I repeated, because the world had taught us to talk about babies like branding. He shrugged, hating that the shrug fit. "You know what I mean. We didn't fist bump or hug or turn this into a new kind of friendship. We just acknowledged a line had been drawn and each of us was on the right side of it for once." When he left, he said, "Take care of yourself." I said, "You too." The door closed behind him and I felt exactly as light and as heavy as a person feels after declining to join a war that promised easy victories. The next week moved oddly, like a city under construction. Jenna went quiet on public platforms for 3 days, then posted a carousel of beige and text about boundaries and healing. Comments were off. The registry link went dead for 24 hours. When it came back, the name at the top still said Baby Lake, but the contact for delivery. Field had changed to an email that wasn't mine. The Venmo notes disappeared. Luca flipped his to private. A friend sent me a screenshot and wrote, "She's pivoting." I wrote back, "We all are," and put my phone down like it was a hot pan. I reached out to my own small circle, the ones who deserved to hear directly from me because I love them enough to ask of them and be asked of. I sent a single message to a group thread with my parents, my sister, and Mike. I wrote, "It's not mine, I'm okay, please don't pile on Jenna, please don't defend me in comment sections. The test is conclusive, I'm stepping back now, I love you." My mother sent hearts I could accept from her and no one else. My sister wrote, "Proud of you for being boring in the right ways." Mike wrote, "Let's run." We ran the next morning around Green Lake, a loop I've traced enough times to know where my breath wants to swim and where it just wants to float. We didn't talk much. The sound of feet on crushed gravel is better at metabolizing certain events than voices are. At the south edge, he said, "You did the right thing." At the west edge, he said, "That room wasn't fair to you." At the north edge, he said, "Sometimes it's fine to be the villain in other people's movie if it means you get to be honest in your own." I told him to save that for whatever book he thinks he's writing. He said he'd call it, "You're Welcome." 2 days later, Jenna texted. It was a paragraph and a half. She said she hated me for embarrassing her. She said she hated herself more for being the kind of person who needed to be embarrassed to tell the truth. She said the test stung, but not as much as the look her mother gave her after. She said she was going to therapy twice a week and that her therapist had a plant named Walter. She said she was sorry. She didn't say for what exactly. I didn't ask. I wrote back, "I hope you find steady ground." I didn't type good luck, because luck is what people ask for when they don't plan on learning. The week after that, Luca sent a single line, "It's mine." No exclamation point, no scared face, just a period. The quiet kind that understands it now anchors a sentence instead of ending one. I stared at the text until the relief in my body stopped pretending to be grief. Then I wrote back, "Be better than we were." He wrote, "That's the plan." The baby shower did not reschedule, it rebranded. A smaller backyard version happened weeks later at someone's craftsman house with a fence that looked like it had dissertation level opinions about staying. I was not invited. I was relieved to be so thoroughly uninvolved that I could forget the date. The world did not end or even blink. That's the cruel thing about our private disasters. Buses keep arriving on time. I spent the next months doing the opposite of making announcements. I put my phone in a drawer at 10 and let the dark come be dark. I learned my building's maintenance guy's name and used it when I saw him, because the world is kinder when you know the person who holds the keys. I said yes to hikes I used to say no to. Somewhere between mile 5 and mile 8 of a trail no one had Instagrammed properly yet, I realized I was not mad at anyone in particular. It's an underrated luxury to carry only your own weight. Jenna's mother called me once. I let it go to voicemail. She said she wanted to apologize for the text she sent me the day of the shower, for the way she needed a villain to make sense of a story that didn't love sense. She said she wished me well. I saved the message, not because I needed proof, but because adulthood is having a folder in your head labeled "People doing their best too late" and keeping it anyway. Work noticed, not the drama. No one at work knew because I was done letting my personal life audition for the company talent show, but the calm. My manager asked if I wanted to lead a reliability initiative that meant fewer nights on call and more days explaining to people how not to make the pager cry. I said yes. I wrote documentation so thorough it made other documentation feel underdressed. Younger engineers asked me questions. I answered them like I wish someone had answered me 10 years ago. It turns out that proving something to yourself is more sustainable than proving it to strangers over cupcakes. Sometimes at night when I watered the plant I bought because the internet said plants help and I decided to let it, I would think about the alternate life, the one where the test said 99% and I had spent the shower opening boxes of whites while Luca frosted roses and everybody pretended to like the same future. I let myself feel the ache for exactly 30 seconds, then I let it pass because ache thinks it owns more land than it does when you don't negotiate. Jenna sent me 2 more texts in the months that followed. The first told me she was moving to Spokane to be near family for the last trimester. The second told me she'd had the baby and that he was healthy. She didn't ask me to come see him. She didn't send a picture. She wrote, "Thank you for making me tell myself the truth." I put my phone down and said out loud, "To my empty kitchen, you're welcome," the way Mike would have, with a smirk and a soft landing. The day after that, I met a dog at the shelter who had a runner's chest and a face like a question I wanted to answer. They called him Arrow. He did a little hop when he realized I was there for him. We ran the trail by the lake the next morning, and he didn't pull, not once, as if he'd been waiting to match my pace. People say dogs heal you. I think they just remind you that your body knows how to move forward without checking over its shoulder every 20 feet. If you were waiting for a big karmic twist where Jenna gets dragged in public and I get a parade, I'm sorry to disappoint you. That kind of cosmic budgeting looks tidy on TV and unhinged in real life. The truth was enough. It was not sweet. It was not cinematic. It was a sentence in a lab report and the way a room got quiet when air finally met fact. It was my choice, in that quiet, not to perform, not to triumph, not to beg, just to end. And then to begin again in smaller rooms where soup arrives in the mail and a dog learns your route by heart. Months passed. I kept running. Arrow learned to sleep through thunder. I stored the lab report in a cabinet with my lease and my passport, the other documents that tell me who I am and where I belong. Once, in the grocery store, I saw Luca. He had a baby strapped to his chest in a carrier the color of wet sand. The baby's fist gripped the strap like the world might float away if he didn't hold it down. Luca looked tired and extraordinary. He saw me and nodded. A thank you that didn't require conversation. I nodded back and grabbed cilantro. I didn't require conversation. On a Sunday evening, after a run that felt like a conversation with an old friend, I sat at my table and wrote down the 3 sentences I wish someone had said to me 2 years ago, before any of this began. The first, love and proof are not enemies. The second, you are allowed to ask for evidence in rooms where everyone else is applauding a promise. The third, kindness without truth is just delayed cruelty. I don't know if Jenna reads these words or if someday that kid will, scrolling through an internet that somehow still runs on servers I once kept awake at night. If he does, I hope he learns this earlier than I did. Your life deserves your courage. That sometimes looks like showing up, sometimes it looks like stepping back. Both are a kind of love when you're careful with the edges. And if you're listening to this in the late hours, lights off, phone warm in your hand, deciding whether to be the villain in someone else's version to keep from being a ghost in your own, I will tell you what the lab tech told me when I thanked her for a result that hurt and helped at the same time. It's okay to want clarity. It's okay to require it. It's okay to be done. What would you have done in my place? Would you have opened the envelope in that room or waited? Tell me why. Drop your take in the comments, hit like if this one kept you listening, and subscribe so the next story finds the person who needs it at 2 a.m. as much as you did tonight.